Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for this session of Spokane Public Schools Keep Learning series for mathematics. Today's lesson is for students in grade 4, but all of you are welcome to join in. My name is Amber Smith and I'm a 4th grade teacher at Finch Elementary in Spokane Public Schools, and I will be your teacher for this lesson. I'm so glad that you get to join us. If you didn't see our previous lessons, you are welcome to by visiting the KSPS website. Sometimes it's helpful to go back and watch the other lessons in our series so you can continue to build your understanding of the mathematics we will be doing together. Today, we're going to continue our thinking on multiplying with larger numbers using that partial product method. So we will just continue our practice with that today. So for today's lesson, you will need paper, pencil, and your fabulous brain. So I'll give you a moment to gather your supplies and then we'll get started.
All right, so hopefully you have all the materials that you need to get started. And I thought we'd do a little warm up with a multiplication series of numbers. So talking about multiplying by sevens. And so what I'd like you to do, either mentally or on your piece of paper, jot down the answers to these problems. And I will pause for a moment just to give you a moment to think about those. I also want you to think about any patterns. All right, so let's check our thinking and let's see what we got for these. So we got 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, 56, 63, and 70. Okay, so what are you thinking about any patterns that you're noticing? I notice, of course, that when we're going up, we're just adding 7 each time. So the answers are increasing by 7 as we get larger because we're adding one more group. I also notice too that sometimes multiplying by sevens can be a little bit of a challenge. So when you get into these larger problems, like 7 times 7 and 7 times 8, we begin to struggle. So I want to remind you of a couple tricks that you can do when you're solving some of those larger multiplication problems. And one of those is that you can break it out into chunks that you might know. So there's a couple ways that I could think about 7 times 8 if it's one that I really struggle with. One way I could think about that is I could say, well, it's like having two 7 times 4 because I can break up the 8. So that's like having a 28 and a 28, and I could add those together. So I get that same answer. That's one way that I can do it. There are other ways I could break up that same problem. What about if I took the 7 times 8 and instead of breaking the 8 up, what if I broke the 7 up? What if I broke it up into a 3 times 8 and a 4 times 8? 4 plus 3 is 7. And we get 28. And 32 and 24. That's one way I could do it. So if I'm ever struggling with those multiplication problems that are feeling a little bit big or I don't have them memorized, I can always break it out into pieces that are a little bit easier for me. So that's just one little tip for today. Now, earlier this week, we talked about partial product and we connected it with the area model and showed how partial product and area model have a lot in common. Today, we're just going to continue with some practice on partial product. So I'm going to take you through 3 problems that we're going to practice together. So I'd like you to do them with me on your paper. And then I'm going to give you 4 problems to practice on your own. All right, so the first one that we are going to practice today is 2,398 times 7. So if you remember from last time, I'll walk you through the steps, but the first step is let's set it up in a standard algorithm form. And then I'm going to start breaking out the pieces that I'm going to multiply together. So just breaking it out by each place value. So my first one, I have 7 times 8, which equals 56. If you remember from last time too, I circled just to show like how we are doing the steps. So how I'm moving from right to left. Now I have 7 times 9. But remember, that's not a 9, that's a 90. I can think about it as 7 times 9, which is 63. But I've got to remember that it's one more place value over. So paying attention to that 0 that moves it over another place value. My next one is 7 times 300. Hopefully this is all coming back to you now if you practiced with us earlier this week. So 7 times 300. I know 3 times 7 is 21. But we're talking about 2,100 with those place value spots that I need to move. And then my last one is 7 times 2,000, which would equal 14,000. I want to make sure I've got everything lined up so I don't have any addition mistakes, because now I have to add these 4 numbers together. So I have 6 in this column, 8 in this column, 7, 6, 1. 16,786. So I know we moved a little quickly through that, but I want you to just get used to the process. So making sure that you're understanding the steps that we have to do in order to solve problems with partial product. We're always going to break it out by each place value when we're doing these multiplication problems. So we want to make sure that we are doing that process the same time every time. All right, let's look at our next practice problem. We have 4,847 times 3. So before I do anything, I want you to be thinking about what's your first step that you need to do? Where do you need to begin with this? What's the first thing we have to remember? We have to remember that we're going to work on the right side first. So we're going to start here. And remember what I said, that I'm circling to show you that to make sure you're doing this in the right order, but eventually we don't circle. On the next problem, we're not going to circle just to show that. All right, so the first thing we've got here is a 3 times 7. So thinking about 3 times 7, I'm glad we worked with 7s earlier in our warm-up. That's reminding me that that's 21. My next one would be 3 times the 40, which gives me 120. 3 times 4 is 12. Look at that place value of the 0 there. I've got 3 times 800. So I'm thinking 3 times 8. Well, I know that's 24, but I also have a couple of zeros in there. And then my last one is 3 times 4,000, which is going to give me 12,000. All right. I could also remember too, if I have something like that, remember if you're not feeling confident with the method that I was using with multiplying the digits and adding in the zeros, you can think about it like this too. And we had talked about before how, yeah, that might take you a little bit more time, but that might be the way that you need to do it. the way that your brain is working for solving those problems today. All right, then I'm just going to add down my columns. And for this one, I get 14,541. Okay. Now, remember, you can also, a great way to check your work is to solve the exact same problem with the area model, or to get a calculator when you're all done and check your work that way. But if you did make some mistakes, I want you to go back. That's when your brain's really going to grow. If you can go back and try to find where that mistake was at, what happened, it's always really important to go back and look at that. All right, here is our last practice problem together for today. 6,985 times 4. All right, this time I'm not going to circle. This time I am just going to write out the different problems as I'm breaking them out by place value. So my first one is 4 times 5. So 4 times 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. My next one, 4 times 80. So that's an 80. And I know 4 times 8 is 32. I got that 0 in there. My next one, 4 times 900. Got a couple zeros in here. And 4 times 9. Now that's 36. And then my last one is 4 times 6,000. Always feels like those are really big numbers, but once you know that trick with the zeros and understanding how the place value moves it over to the left, it makes it so much easier. So I know we're talking about thousands, and 4 times 6 is 24, so 24,000. All right. How'd you do with that one? Feeling pretty confident with understanding this method now? Even though we're moving a little quickly, we'll have some practice problems that you can do at your own pace as well. So you can slow it down and take the time that you need on it. All right, so now I'm going to add down the columns. And this time I get 27,940. Okay, so I hope that you're starting to feel a little bit more confident with the work that you're doing with partial product. And I want to show you some practice problems for you to work on. So I want you on your piece of paper to write down these 4 problems. 3,726 times 4, 6,345 times 6, 4,298 times 9, 5,542 times 5. So this would be great practice to do these problems. You can always come up with your own problems too, your own 4-digit times 1-digit numbers. You could even do a 3-digit times a 1-digit, 2-digit times a 1-digit, 5-digit times a 1-digit. You can practice it in so many different ways. Then talk to your teacher about how you can share this work with them and if they would like to see it. And let them know if you have any questions. Today, I've really enjoyed looking at partial product with you again, and I'm glad that you got to join me from your home. Look forward to seeing you again for one of our next lessons on KSPS. And if you're looking for more activities, they can be found on the Spokane Public Schools Learning from Home website. Have a great rest of your day.